Hi, it's Quilting Nerd. Welcome back to my channel. And today another video on practical quilting. Probably you can recognize, those that watch my channel on a regular basis, you can recognize that I already shown you how I quilted this quilt. It's a very nice quilt consisting of stripe units and cut with 60-degree triangle ruler and just sewn together to create those wonderful diamond forms. And I have it almost all quilted, but the border is not yet done. And sometimes quilting the border can be quite challenging. In this case, it is solid green color, so it's not really matching the strip elements, and it's not really it's matching good in color, but it's different than the gray background and also different than the strip units. So how do I quilt it? Because I am switching back and forth between the lines and all the feather elements, I thought I could quilt it just with a feather, a continuous feather. But that would be kind of boring or maybe obvious, and I am actually in mood for something else. And I decided to kind of go in between. One problem with my border is that it's not exactly as wide as my blocks, which means if I will draw lines, I'm cutting the tip here, the border. So I cannot really recreate the missing part of this block here. And the same is here. It's a little bit too little to draw the to quilt a similar pattern like here, simulating another strip block unit. So what can I do? I can still use the extension lines. You can see a little bit of my marking here, and I can still quilt those with simple lines, but just be continuous, and I can quilt feathers parallel to this part. That would be one of the options. The other option is that I'm using those lines, and that's probably would be what I will be doing. I will use the lines that are created from extension of my blocks. So they are going at 60 degrees angles, or here it's 30 degrees angles actually, to this border line. And I will separate them with thicker echo lines, and then I will fill them with feathers and swirl units, so I will have a bit more unique look, but still maintaining the 60-degree triangle. So you know me, sometimes I'm making plans, and then when I'm quilting, I may decide in the last moment for something else. But I am definite that I will be using the I will subdivide my border with the lines extending from my blocks, and I will be using definitely feather units because they are so often here present within the quilt. So let's see what I can create. That borders are really difficult sometimes to quilt because we concentrate so much on this, what we will be quilting within the main body of the quilt, that we forget about the borders. And that's another part, another element of the quilt which may cause us to ask ourselves, how do I quilt it? So let's see how I will quilt this part of my quilt. Let's start quilting. I checked once more, and I'm really missing like a quarter of an inch to have enough space to mirror my elements that I have directly, so mirror my blocks. There is another problem with that, because some of the blocks cannot be, some of them can be mirrored without any problem, but some of them are partially quilted. So then I have to come up, in such a case I have to come up. I was simply not planning ahead enough to compete with this strategy. This is always one of the possible ways to finish your border. Simply continue with the blocks, how you quilted the blocks, and extend them into the border if you have partial blocks. But in this case, as I said, the tip is ending at the edge of my border, so I would be cutting it off. And yeah, I was not planning enough because I was sure I will be just making continuous feather design. So shoulda, woulda, coulda. Now we have to go on and quilt. And quilting border is on a quilt, on a large quilt on your domestic machine, comes with extra challenges because you have the whole weight of your quilt on one side, and that makes the things complicated enough. So let's simply quilt it. And as I said, I don't really want to quilt continuous feather. It would look great, but because I quilted a lot of feathers also in this quilt, I decided that I will quilt something else. So there are different ways I could go on quilting here. So I could just I like the strategy of subdividing it with the 60 and 30 degree angles, and it will give me a very nice look of interrupted border. But I also want to do something else. So what I could do here, it would be the fast and easy way. It would be just to make dot to dot designs all over. And can be that I will do that in the elements that are laying opposite to the blocks that were just quilted with lines. But here I think I will go for a little bit of variety. And because I separated with a shallow dot to dot line, I separated my border from the rest of my quilt. This part I can just quilt with nice swirls, which are repeating often within the block. So I have a similarity of design, I have a similarity of the shape of the areas that I subdivided in my borders. And because I'm anyway quilting with matching green thread, which I hope is visible here, let me switch on another light a little bit, so I can just fill it. At the end, what will count here on this quilt is the overall texture, because I am quilting it with thread that it's matching the fabrics. As you remember, I used a very light teal on my gray background elements, and I used this nice matching green thread in my stripe units. And that means I have my very nice quilting. It will show off with the right light. I'm varying the density, so it means the light will be reflected differently, but still my quilting is not dominating my patchwork pattern. It's actually enhancing it because of the different styles I used in the blocks and in the stripe units. That looks nice. when I decide on my quilt design, within the quilt itself, I'm trying to be very consistent. And once I decide on the strategy, I am staying with it all over the quilt. In this way, I can quilt very fast because I know what to quilt. However, the borders, if I have borders on my quilt, can be a bit challenging because not always they can be incorporated into the patchwork design. And there you have to come up with something that it's kind of it's matching and blending with the main part of the patchwork top, but it still has, it's visible, it's a border. So I think this will be looking quite nice. So now we have the second element. I have to separate them, so let me just check that I have really the, yep, this one is nicely at 60 degrees, the line. I don't have to correct it. And so now I will quilt this part here. I have lots of work in progress quilting projects which I have to complete. Some of them are related to my standard YouTube content, but some are actually work that I have, projects that I have to complete. So it can be that I will try to combine the two activities, and I hope you don't mind, there will be more content on very practical quilting. So this is one of the problems. I cannot see really where I am going if I have the right angle, so I'm actually waiting, going a little bit and then just adjusting slightly the angle. It was not too bad. The first element is ready, and the next one has a very long side that it's open, and in such a case I like first to secure it, and that's where actually using the ruler foot, and the ruler is actually very useful. So as you can see, I am actually, this part here is will be anyway hidden by binding, so I don't care if I am precise or not, as long as I'm staying within 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. And also my stitches are then a little bit longer, but in this way I can quilt without worrying. Another thing, and that happened to me so often, we have to be careful that this part of the backing is not rolling under, so you're actually sewing it to the back of your quilt. And yeah, it happens to me at least every second quilt or so. Very often, if I'm lucky, then it's still staying here within the area where I'm far away from the actual quilt, so I can just cut around it and it's not a problem. But sometimes it goes very, very deep, so if I will notice it early enough, I just have to then stop and pick out the stitches, or I am just not talking about it. So happens. So now we have this other part of the other element of our subdivided element of our border. Let's go back to that. So I have a few options. I can go and just quilt dot to dot, but it's actually a relatively long element and I will have problems aiming it. Anyway, then I will not see the point of the dot to dot because it will be covered by the binding. So in this case, I will just go as planned by the feather element, and I will not do anything fancy, just try to divide it, the remaining space, in half. Go back. That's what I meant, that I have this whole bulk of the quilt on one side, and I have to be careful that it's not pulling and it's twisting my quilt sandwich a little bit. If you have a large table, it will be not a problem, but if you have such a small quilting space like I do, you have to pay attention. So now I can go a little bit here and just start with my feathers here, because I do not have that much space here, and big part of this, at least 1/4 here, will be covered by the binding, so I can easily finish my feathers somewhere around here. And now I have to refill my bobbin because it's at the end. My bobbin is refilled and I can keep going. So again, I am paying attention that I'm staying farther away than 1/4 of an inch from an edge, because otherwise my plums will be covered. It's not such a big deal if they would, but if I'm already putting all this effort to make them nice, I want them to be visible. And let's see how the final effect will be, if I will add another variable, but I don't think so. Now I will be just alternating between the two designs, and in this way my border will be sharing similarity with the patchwork design and the quilting designs because of the feathers and the swirls, but it will also have its own character because of the very distinct separation of the elements and the straight echo lines. So what is only left is I have to think about the corners. Hopefully I divided everything. Yeah, I just divided like this. So the corners will be irregularly shaped, and I will be filling them with swirls. I know I am not always showing how the final quilts look like, but I'm actually thinking to make one extra video where I will simply collect the end, the final look at the done project. So once I will collect enough of the projects to justify such video, I would need at least 5 or 6 of those. Then I will share with you the final look of the projects before they will move on to their new homes, before they will be gifted away, or before I will simply start using them. So lately there are so many different reasons to actually give the quilt away that I noticed that my supply of my own quilts kind of diminished, and I have to again collect, make some big ones. I have some waiting for to be completed. For example, I have like blocks already done and arranged. I just have to put them together and quilt it, and I never have enough time. But probably again, this is something you can relate very well to have more ideas and more projects waiting, and actually more projects started at the actual time you have to complete them. I like using feathers on the borders, going back to the topic, because sometimes borders will have some extra excess of fabric because it's not measured properly, or it's stretched, or it's unbiased. Not in this case, but sometimes it's simply the quilting on one side and then the border on the other side, and you may have some waving effect. So when you are using feathers on the borders, then you can put this excess of fabric within one of the clumps and distribute it very nicely. So that's one of the reasons why I like them so much. So, and now the next element would be the swirls again. So let's move to the next line. And in this case, remember, we are adding the echo line outside here. So we want to separate the border from the bulk of the quilt. It's a very skinny dot to dot, and I can use the stitch line from the next block as my orientation point. I am not that far away, and then I'm going to the next corner. And again, I can now go on with my free motion quilting and quilt some nice swirls. Make sure that all the fabric is there where it should be. So probably it was just a bug. Once I know what to quilt, it becomes really very meditative exercise. I can just let my hands do their job and I can just relax. I think that's one of the main reasons why I'm trying not to overthink my designs in quilting, because it's everywhere else we have to take always decisions and think about the consequences, and here it's an exercise in acceptance of the result, because most of the time, 95% of the cases, especially this factor increasing with your experience, once you choose your design and you quilt it, the result looks simply good. It helped me a lot when I outgrew the phase of I want to quilt everything at once. That was fun. It took me like 2 years where I was really wanted to quilt everything and make sure that it's visible that I have this skill, and I wanted to show off. And now I can just relax, and this is so nice, you know. So now let's go back here a little bit, because I have to make sure that my marking is at the right angle. I noticed that in some cases I was going a little bit too much. Yeah, that was also doing the markings on a solid surface helps with the accuracy, definitely. And like that, I will have here this very nice corner, which by the way I still have to here check if I have the right angle. And this one is okay. And then I can quilt it with that, so this part will be filled with swirls. Only I just have to think how to separate it from at this side. That will be kind of fun. So probably I will have to add the diagonal here, and I will just do that. That should do the trick. So I will quilt one feather more here, as you've seen before. And then I will move on to the corner. So this is one of the very few cases where I will actually do the marking and quilt on the lines. This is part of the design. Markings are just an helpful element to keep the design consistent. It wouldn't have to be a line, it could have been also the start and beginning point. But in case of this quilt, because of the size and the length, I prefer to draw the whole line, and also it helped me to explain to you what I'm doing. So now you see, now I forgot to quilt on the side. It's an error I will have to repeat in a moment. This time I will try to stay 1/4 away from the side. So even if I'm not quilting with rulers on the quilt, when I'm coming to an edge, I like to use the ruler to keep the fabric smoothed out, and if necessary I will change the foot to the ruler foot, of course, because in this way it helps me to make sure that fabric is properly secured. Now I can just go back instead of traveling. I can just go on the edge. It doesn't matter because it will be hidden anyway, and I can start. With my feather. I don't think I will ever get bored with feathers. I know they are extremely traditional and conservative design, but there is a good reason why, because it's simply because of the repetition of the shape. It gives you this very nice shape and very nice texture, which is extremely well visible with the right light, and it always looks good. So I love improv quilting, I love modern quilting. I like straight lines, even if they are so boring to quilt. I like changing designs. I like to combine elements of Zentangle and doodling, but I also love these traditional designs, and if I can, I will use feathers, especially if I have a face and the quilting is working nicely, because sometimes it doesn't, but that's fine. Then I can always use different designs. So let me quilt this feather to the end and quilt the end element of my swirls. I will start with securing the corner and the edges, and I will show you this end element of the corner of the border, because after that it will be just repeating. And I promise, when the quilt is done and the binding is on, which may take a while, I will show you this quilt in its final version, including also this wonderful baby quilt I showed you in the last video, and some of the other projects. Just so you know that I am actually finishing the quilts I'm showing you. So let me finish that one and I will show you the finished corner in a moment. I'm approaching the end of the swirl corner, and then I realized that the other side of the quilt, of the border, will need some slight modification in the design, so I decided to show you a little bit more. Most of my quilts are improvisation. So I had a vague idea how to do that, but now I simply forgot about it when I started quilting the other side. So now we are on the short side of the quilt, and here I have to divide the borders slightly different. So actually here, because I have the corner at this interface, at the border between my border and the main body of the patchwork, here actually I can make very nicely dot to dot design, because I have just a very small triangle to fill. So this will feel actually very nicely to fit here perfectly. I like dot to dot designs as well, just those simple lines, because they are very effective, very fast. They look good. So perfect. So now let's secure the edge of the quilt with the final stitch, and let's go back. And because already we have here echo lines, I do not have to separate. And what I have now left, the second section of my border will be a trapezoid. I don't know how to say that in English. So it's just the lower part of the triangle, and this one will be filled with swirls actually. Again, I just want to keep it consistent, and I will be not overthinking it right now. So once I will finish that one, this section, I promise I will show you how it looks like, because simply I wanted to explain to you how the whole design on my border will look like. And because the edges, the short edges of the quilt have to be divided a bit differently than the long ones, that was still the essential part of the video. And now there will be no surprises, because now those elements will be really repeating over and over again. Oh, I was actually lucky, because very often when I'm so distracted and actually a bit tired after a long day of work, I may make mistakes. In some cases it's just my intuition is good enough that I am noticing things even if I am not really consciously consider them. So I can easily find a solution, like in this case. Sometimes, however, I have to swear and let it think, let it be for a moment before I will find a solution. So sometimes that happens also to me. However, as long as I will find the solution and it looks good, then it seems it was supposed to be that way. And let's take a look at this element of border that I quilted. And I must say I really like it. First of all, I like it when the sun comes from the side and it shows perfectly all this beautiful texture here. And we see the elements with the swirls, then the feather, next swirl element, again feather, and now we are going to the part where we have the corner. So let me zoom out a bit, and then we have the elements for the short border. And I think when finished, it will be a really very nice way of finishing and complementing all the other quilting. So we have the lines and we have tons of feathers in different form, and the border will be just the perfect match and fit. So I hope that this video will help you find a way to quilt your borders in a bit more original way, if you are in mood for that, of course. And I will continue from time to time providing you such content that is very practically oriented and focused on the actual project, very practical ones. So the ones before, it's simply my normal kind of everyday quilt, which I, by the way, also love. And that's all for today. Hopefully see you soon, and thank you for watching. Bye.